You're listening to Artistic Finance, show 171, a pre-LDI bonus episode. On today's show, we talk with lighting designer, programmer, and video director Erica D. Hayes. We discuss following the money, a high school internship leading to a career path, contracts are only as good as the people they're made with, speed of payments as a contractor with net 30, net 45, and net 60, and joining IATSE 728, the union dedicated to motion picture set lighting. At the very end of today's episode, I've written a holiday short story involving lighting consoles. I hope you're curious enough to stick around and listen. Find links for everything we discussed today at artisticfinance.com/171bonus. Without further ado, let's get to the show.
You are listening to Artistic Finance, where we help creatives learn about the business of show business.
Welcome and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Ethan Steimel, broadcasting from Lake St. Louis, Missouri.
And I'm Ellen Lampert-Gréaux, your co-host, calling in from St. Bart's in the tropics.
And I'm Erica D. Hayes. I'm calling in from Los Angeles, California.
Cool. Let me introduce Erica to everyone. Erica D. Hayes, a Detroit native, moved to Los Angeles, where she became a go-to lighting designer for both legacy acts like the Isley Brothers, Fantasia, and Run DMC, and contemporary stars like Sid, Coi Leray, and H.E.R, who she toured with. She also designed R&B star Daniel Caesar's Freudian tour and his performance on The Late Night Show with James Corden. She then moved into television and film after 15 years in the industry and was initiated into the IATSE 728 union. She landed early opportunities as a lighting console programmer for HBO shows such as Made for Love and Westworld. Her work on those shows helped her earn additional gigs for the Nickelodeon sitcom The Coi Leray, HBO's hit Insecure, and ABC's Call Me Kat, along with the feature film House Party, produced by LeBron James' Spring Hill Company. She will be participating in several sessions at LDI this year as well. So, Erica, welcome to Artistic Finance.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to meet you and looking forward to seeing you in Las Vegas. So, when it comes to music, to concerts, to live events, what do you like to go to?
You know what? I like to go where the money is. and to be honest with you, some of my favorite touring acts haven't always had the biggest budgets, but they've always had the camps that had great teams for the most part. You know, I like working with people who pretty much have their act together. They know about Master Tour. I pretty much just have to come in and be an LD. Yeah, it's been fun so far.
And are you good, bad, or neutral when it comes to money?
You know what? I'm going to say neutral, actually.
Okay. Do you think about it?
I think about it all the time.
So when you do these freelance gigs and you work with these different musicians and stuff, how do you approach pricing for your work or your services?
That's a really good question because everybody has a different budget. And a lot of times I just have a range of, okay, I'm not going to go less than this because this is how much my daily expenses are. This is how much my monthly expenses are. And this is my goal. So I pretty much start at the goal and let them talk me down, but no less than that. But it's kind of been tough too, because a lot of times you make this agreement beforehand, you do the gig, and then the client sometimes switches up after the fact. You know, we have this agreement that, you know, they're going to pay the following Friday or net 7, net 14, this, that, and the other. And then all of a sudden you're chasing them on a net 45 or something like that for a one show thing. So it's always interesting.
So far in your career in live events, film and television, what is the biggest financial lesson you've learned?
You know, the contract is only as good as the person. So I need deposits up front. I need to see confirmation codes from airlines before something's actually booked for me. a lot of times when I'm offered a tour from an artist who's been touring for a while, I ask myself, well, what happened to the last team that was there? And then sometimes when I call around, I find out that there's money issues and things of that nature. Like, oh, they didn't even pay the last team. So let me not go into this situation and things of that nature. But um, yeah, we're still figuring it out.
That's very smart, actually. So, how did you navigate maintaining financial stability during the recent slow times in the industry?
Now, when you say slow times, are you talking about the writer strike?
No, well, the writer's strike and COVID and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you know what? I have dealt with the gift and the curse of the industry of being in concerts, touring, and also TV and film. Touring has been my bread and butter for a very long time. So when TV and film started to slow down, I was able to call a couple of artists that I was working with at the time and, jump back on the road with them and things of that nature. Even when I had the TV show That Girl Lele, which was almost a 2-year run, which is amazing. I would still fly out on the weekends, doing shows with the Isley Brothers or Fantasia. And people would think that I'm crazy, but I knew about the negotiations that were going on, and I know how the producers like to negotiate. So I kind of predicted that a slowdown was coming and I would have to shift gears. Even so, when concerts slowed down during COVID, it was very important to switch gears to TV and film because, we became essential workers almost immediately.
That's very smart. So, you'd say diversity is one of the keys to your success.
Absolutely.
So, are there specific tools in terms of budget software or other kinds of resources that you use to keep you managing your financial aspects? Do you work with a financial advisor or an accountant, or how do you keep it going?
That's a really good question. And, that's something that we talk about in our 728 programmer groups all the time is who's your CPA? I've been led down some bad roads through people who say they do taxes and things of that nature. But right now I'm using QuickBooks. I just recently hired a CPA that's been helping me stay on track. Again, other than that, I'm still trying to figure it out.
Have you started saving for retirement?
You know what? I did. And then the writer's strike became a real thing. So, one of my latest inventions has been diving into a nice 401k. Like I came up with that thing. Again, that's the main reason why I joined IATSE 728. When COVID hit, it became apparent that you can't really rely on artists or the entertainment industry for your retirement plan. It's not really realistic. A lot of my coworkers, unfortunately, work until they die. I just had my production manager just had a stroke this past week, and he's on the job, and you just keep working and keep working and keep working, and working with the Isley Brothers. He's 83 years old, and you just
Wow.
keep working, you keep working, you keep working, and there's no real retirement plan in the entertainment industry. But joining IATSE has helped me shift that priority.
Well, that's good. So, how has networking and relationship building impacted your career and your financial growth?
It's been the entire thing. All of my work has come from previous work, from doing business with previous production managers and tour managers, previous gaffers, directors of photographies, best boys, things of that nature. And other programmers have been the main stability in all of my income.
So, I sort of glossed over it in your bio, like, oh, she was born in Detroit and moved to LA and then became a go-to lighting designer. So clearly there were some other steps in there. What happened along the way?
Well, that's a good question. When I was in high school, an artist by the name of Kem, came to my high school and he spoke, and I was on a video production team. and I was in a radio class, and I interviewed him, and then I filmed him, and his manager was impressed and offered me an internship. And from that internship, I toured with Kim as his video director and started directing some of his music videos, his promo videos, and things of that nature. Then that led me touring with him. And an opening artist by the name of Ledisi was opening for him. And I offered my services to be her lighting designer. And she said, yeah. And I started touring with her. I moved from Detroit to Los Angeles because while I was on that tour with Kim and Ledisi, I came out here and I started meeting people that I would never meet in Detroit. And it became apparent that I needed to transition and move here in order to get to the next level.
Cool. And then how did you transition so fluidly from those kind of musical acts to HBO and Nickelodeon and all that?
Well, joining the union was the main way to transition. I mean, I don't want to say it's impossible to do those type of shows without joining the union, but they have the contracts, and joining IATSE 728 really opened up a lot of doors for me.
Did you have to have the job first to get into the union, or how did it work for you?
You know what? I wish I had an uncle that I could have just called and said, "Hey, get me in." But over the years, I started to meet different programmers that were in. It started to get extremely busy during a particular time. I want to say like right before COVID or something like that. And I started to be able to get my days because, you know, how the union works is everybody in the local has to be busy before they call on people who are not in the local. You know, I got my 30 days on a couple of shows, and from there, the doors have been open.
Great. So you're going to be on a couple different sessions at LDI, the two artistic finance podcasts and the art of programming sessions. Other than what you're speaking about, what excites you about going to LDI?
So last year was my first year going to LDI, and I've always wanted to go to LDI, but I've always been on tour. I've always had a gig that's always interfering with LDI. Last year, I put my foot down and said, I'm going, even if it's just for 16 hours. So I went and I landed. I went to the Women in Lighting event. My friend Emily and Lauren were speaking.
Oh, great.
I was so inspired. I walked the expo floor. My mind was blown at every corner. And I said, oh my goodness, I want to present here next year. And
Here you are.
ask and we shall receive.
So you're going to be on the Women in Lighting panel. You're going to be on the two artistic finance podcasts, which are recorded with an audience at LDI and then broadcast later. And you'll be on the art of programming. So which art of programming sessions are you doing? Do you know? Did Rain ask you specifically?
Yes, Rain did ask me specifically, but I actually do not have that information right in front of me. But I will pull it.
Okay, well, people who are interested can find that online on the LDI website. And Rain Renshaw, who's an extraordinary programmer, sort of coordinates that for us, taking over from Luther Frank, who had taken over from Vicki Claiborne. So it's sort of a legacy program at LDI, which takes place all day Saturday on December 7th and is a great program. So I'm really glad you're going to be part of that as well. So other thoughts about money? Are there other, when you say you think about it all the time, do you have plans in mind for your future?
You know what? Some of the things that I really think about is how we can get rid of this net 30 in the industry. Sometimes there is even net 45 and net 60s. And I just want to figure that out as a collective.
Okay, I was going to ask this. I don't know what that means, net 35. Net 40.
That means you get paid within 30 days, 45 days, or 60 days after the job is finished.
Oh, I see. So you want to be paid sooner?
You know what? I would like to create an industry standard that makes more sense. When you are an employee in the state of California, for example, when I'm doing an IATSE 728 gig for Warner Brothers, I'm considered an employee, and I must be paid by the following week of doing the job. But when productions hire you as a contractor, they can kind of pay you whenever they want to.
Do they mostly respect what's in the contract? Like if the contract says the 30 days, do they respect that mostly or they don't?
It depends on the situation. When I'm doing a tour, I've had many agreements in advance, like, hey, we pay every Friday, we pay this, that, and the other. And then I find myself going 3 or 4 weeks without getting a paycheck. And I'm like, what's going on here? Oh, counting this, counting that. And it's interesting when we talk amongst ourselves in the industry, it's extremely common that a lot of techs are coming across that type of predatory behavior and payments.
So it's hard to be stable that way. It's hard to budget your cash flow when you don't know when that payment's going to come.
Yeah, you like to assume when those payments are coming because of our agreement that we made. But that is why I kind of choose union gigs over non-union gigs. Those are some of my priorities when I'm scheduling things in my on my calendar.
Because you feel more protected.
Absolutely.
Before you were in the union, and that led you into like broadcast, are you, as an LD and programmer, are you like an LD programmer combo? Like, is that most of what you're doing?
It really depends, there's many times for some artists I'm just hired as a programmer. Sometimes I can come in as a designer and then I can hire out a programmer and a lighting director and things of that nature. So to be honest with you, every project has been completely different.
Okay. And before you were in the union, that was pretty much the same as you are now in the union.
Yeah.
Similar thing. Okay. Amazing. And then I actually want to ask about the 401k, because you said joining the union, now you've elected to, I assume you had to elect the 401k. It didn't just automatically come.
Yeah, there was a big packet of papers I had to sign.
Okay.
I slid them over to my husband and said, hey, read this.
That's hilarious. Well, I guess because my union has a pension that you're sort of like automatically enrolled in, but then there's a 401k that's an optional thing. And then they also have like this annuity thing that is sometimes optional, just depending on what contract you fall into.
Ooh. Is that 829?
Yeah, well, it's 829, but it's the IATSE annuity that somehow is connected. Like we're a shared union. So it just depends on what contract you're on, whether you randomly get some money from that automatically. Okay, so you've elected, now that you're in the union, to do this 401k thing. So before that, were you just not doing anything for retirement or for yourself for like 15 years?
No, I mean, I was saving in different savings accounts and things of that nature, separating my business with personal accounts, things of that nature, and then also collecting assets. But it wasn't as strategic as it is now.
It sounds like you're pretty savvy, actually.
I'm trying to figure it out.
Assets is a good word.
Yeah. And you know what? This may or may not be one, but I think lighting consoles and equipment are part of those assets, and being able to rent them out to different productions and things of that nature has kind of changed my trajectory. A lot of times I don't physically want to be a part of 15 different things at once, but I do want those 15 different streams of income.
Well, as you figure that out, let us know, because that's also interesting to me, because there is definitely a track record of designers buying consoles and then buying some equipment, renting it out, and sort of like sustaining their career that way, or like just making it a different avenue. And I think really it's just like, do you want to deal with it, and how do you do it? So when you solve that or figure it out, or, come back and tell us about it.
It's interesting because a lot of programmers in set lighting have a niche market because our client is technically the studio, and the studios need the console, but they don't want to invest in it and maintain it and things of that nature. So that's where in set lighting, it becomes useful to invest in different equipment and things of that nature. Whereas in concerts, generally speaking, the artist is going to go to the vendor for the lights and the console and things of that nature. So, it just depends on which niche market you're in.
It's interesting, too, because I've seen people who claim like their day rate is X number of dollars with console. Their day rate is X number of dollars without console. So it depends whether they have to bring their hardware with them or not. And some people who prefer to, because it's just a comfort level, and their show is built into it, or their cues are built into it, or they know it inside out and would rather use their own console.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. I mean, and when I first got into the union, a couple of programmers told me, their console rentals is how they pay their bills. And all of the labor fees that they get, they're putting out in savings, they're going to different investments and stuff like that. But the console is how they pay their bills. And that kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, that's a really interesting aspect of it.
Okay, Erica, so how many consoles do you own?
Just two right now, but I'm trying to work my way up to some Grandma 3 full sizes. So I know there's a back order and a backlog and things of that nature, but I'm trying to get my hands on some.
Are the two now Grand MA 2s? I don't know it well enough to.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And do you ever program on anything else?
Absolutely. Again, it's a project by project thing. The touring world loves MA, mainly because it's easily accessible, but set lighting is completely different. There's been many times where I've covered other programs on the IR. I started my career on a hog. I ran into AVO lights many, many times in my career. And people are trying to radicalize me into the chances world right now too. So it's been really fun. And consoles, they all speak a similar language. So as long as you know the info, you can kind of helicopter your way around.
I love
It's
that.
interesting
Yeah.
you say. I was just going to say it's interesting that Erica said that because some people found that the language between the Grandma 2 and the Grandma 3 was like, not even the same language. So
No, they're not. They're not the same language. It's definitely you're learning a completely new console at this point. But if you know the principles and the fundamentals of programming, you're really just asking for this channel to have this intensity at this color with these effects.
At LDI last year, I went to the campus, like just half an hour training or hour-long training, and I could love that console. I could learn to love it. I love hearing you say that, like, it doesn't really matter what the console is. They all can do basically the same thing. And specifically, I was on a hog this last week, and I hadn't used hog for like 10 years. And so
Yeah.
I was getting so frustrated, but at the same time, it was like, it's still a great console. Like, it can do anything I need it to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Erica, this was awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us about all this.
Yeah, thank you again for the opportunity. It's been lovely.
and we can't wait to see you live in Las Vegas. I want you to bring the Isley Brothers with you. I remember them from like the 60s. It's like they're still out there. It's amazing.
I know, right? And it's crazy. The last time I was in Las Vegas, I was with the Isley Brothers. We had a show at the Pearl Theater right before they got their new install. And I think the Pearl just got a new install of some new lights. So I'm excited to go back there and see what's up.
Which hotel is that in?
The Pearl, it's inside the Palms. The Palms.
Oh, the Palm. Right. Okay. Well, in any case, this was great. I'm always so curious to see what people are doing about money, and you can never start to save for retirement too early.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yesterday was too late.
That's it for this episode. My takeaways are follow the money. Erica isn't married to film, concerts, touring, etc. She just goes where the money pays. I like that a lot, as I've been surrounded most of my career with people trying to do hoity-toity art. And while that's worthy, if it doesn't create a sustainable living, it becomes problematic to living a healthy life. Erica likes working with people who have it together. Instead of trying to squeeze water out of a rock, seek out opportunities with people who have it together. I know in my career, I've worked with a lot of scrappy theater shows in hopes that one of them or people from them will get bigger and better productions. But the reality is I should be seeking out productions that have it together, as people who have it together make solid contracts. Net 30, meaning you get paid in 30 days of the project completing. I've naturally included a 30-day window anytime I've submitted an invoice. USA 829 has the payment structured very well, in that lighting designers get the first third of payment on signing the contract, the second third when the plot is complete, and the last third at opening. Now, for projects when I need to submit an invoice, I always just put the due date 1 month away. Now, I've never run into a problem except for times when it was a bigger issue than just the timing of the payment. Erica talked about her union, 728 groups that are always having people asking about accountants. She mentioned that she was led down some bad roads with people who said they were accountants. She didn't elaborate on that, but I will say that when Nicole and I first looked for an accountant, we did the logical thing of asking people around us. We actually didn't get that many people who wanted to refer us to their accountant for one reason or another. So we did take the one referral we got, which was from a director I was working with at the time. Their accountant referred us to someone else, and their motivation was actually to be our financial advisors, and they made that a condition of becoming our accountant. And then, of course, 2 years later, they stopped offering the accountant. So I'm not saying that was the worst experience, but if I were to go back in time, I would just look up online a CPA firm. I would call around until I got one that wanted to do what I wanted, which was just file taxes. But you live and you learn. Now, if I were looking for an accountant today, I would go to the Artistic Finance Resource List, which is my living document of career and financial resources. It includes a list of entertainment accountants spread across the country. That list is on our Patreon page, and if you want to search for it, just type resource list. I'll also put a link to that in the show notes, which this week are at artisticfinance.com/171 bonus. Talking about renting out lighting consoles. Now, this was interesting because I spent most of my career in off-Broadway and have sometimes rented out a H.E.R, a couple lights, or my ETC Nomad for programming. I even used to keep a list on my website of equipment I owned that I could rent out. However, since the gigs I did tended to be short-term projects and they had small budgets, I never was able to turn this into a sustainable income stream. However, Eric mentioning that studios rent consoles from programmers versus tours renting them from rental houses, that's something to be aware of. And it really speaks to finding the niche market in which you can maybe rent out some gear. And my final thought is about console agnosticism. I absolutely love this. So any good programmer will obviously have a preferred console, but good programmers also know that they can use any console. I'm going to go on a little rant that no one is asking for, but the reason I love Erica's attitude about consoles is because of my general annoyance when I have to listen to programmers bash other consoles. Specifically ETC consoles, which have a monopoly in theater. That's what I'm using 99% of the times, and it's what I'm familiar with. However, anytime I'm on another console, I'm not upset. I do get frustrated just because I don't know them as well, but they can always do anything that I want. But when I talk to other programmers to find out, hey, how do I do this on this console? Somehow those conversations naturally just flow into them bashing whichever console they don't like. And that's fine. They don't really mean it. They're just filling the air. But outwardly, I'm sort of nodding along. But internally, I'm cringing because people are saying things like, oh, no, the effects engine is so slow, or I have to press so many buttons to do this simple thing. And it just grinds my gears because, for one, I know my console and I know it isn't that many button presses, but also because different consoles are set up to cater to different workflows. So when I work on a Grand MA or a Hog, I set up a cue list and a channel display just like the ETC default is. And yes, that takes some time, but the console can easily do it. But I don't sit there and complain about how the console's not set up the way I want it to. I just make it do what I want. Anyway, thanks for listening to me on that. I'm just so happy to hear somebody else say that they're happy to use a variety of consoles. So thank you, Erica. All right, that's it for my takeaways. LDI is just 2 weeks away. If you're going to be there, I'm recording 2 sessions that are going to be published as episodes. Those are December 8th and 9th. Both at 11 a.m. Erica is going to be on both panels, and the first because she works with Wasted Potential, and they'll be talking large-scale event management and budget. The second recording will be general financial independence Talking, and that's with Amy Deluxe, Erica, and programmers Matt Mills and Matt Gaminsky. And side note here, I owe Matt Gaminsky a drink when we're in Vegas because Matt is a hog programming teacher. And I mentioned during the interview that I was recently using a hog console, and that was for a holiday show at Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri. Now, Matt was coincidentally lighting a show at Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And that's a coincidence because Dollywood is the sister theme park to Silver Dollar City. Or maybe that's not a coincidence because the parks have the same owners. So it checks out that they would both have hog consoles in both the locations. But anyway, Matt spent more than an hour of his life on the phone with me answering my programming questions off and on for a full week. And he also answered lots of texts, all while lighting his own show. So I owe Matt a drink at LDI. If you plan to be there or you can make it, I would love to see you and say hi. If you can make it to either of the recordings, please do make an effort to come because the recording studio is way far off the show floor and you really have to go out of your way to find it. So if you do show up, you're super dedicated and I truly appreciate it. And speaking of appreciation, the Patreon patrons of this show are amazing. I am thankful for the support you're giving me, and it does make a big impact on my life. A special welcome and a thank you to David and Brian for joining up as patrons this week. They are both lighting designers, and there's nothing I love more than having other lighting designers support this show. So much of the work we do, both in lighting and podcasting, are solitary activities, and having so many lighting designers as patrons brings me a sense of community that I just am grateful for. So I'm just so happy that we can share space and time in that way. So thank you to everyone who is a patron. And if you're listening and you want to join up as a patron, you'll get early releases and you'll get ad-free episodes. And you can sign up at patreon.com/artisticfinance. Now, unrelated to everything, I would like to take a moment in remembrance of actor Teri Garr, who passed away on October 29th. She played Inga in Young Frankenstein, and longtime listeners might recall that I have a silly obsession with Young Frankenstein and the subsequent Young Frankenstein musical, which was lit by our very first guest on this show, Peter Kaczorowski. Now, if you'll also remember last week, Matthew LaBanca was a performer in the Broadway version. Anyway, it's just fun seeing Young Frankenstein connections, which are nothing, but at the same time are cool. Another connection through space and time, Teri studied acting at the Lee Strasberg Institute down on 15th Street, which is in Union Square in New York City. Now, I lit several plays there 10 years ago, and just knowing that makes me happy, even though I never knew her, and she certainly never knew that I existed, but we did travel through some of the same paths. So rest in peace, Teri Garr, who fittingly passed away in the Halloween season. Now, thank you for taking that moment with me. With the election going on, her death went mostly unreported, but because she was such a part of my childhood watching that movie, I wanted to pass along that news just in case you missed it. So if you get the chance sometime, watch Young Frankenstein in her honor. Now, the dad joke to end the episode is a doozy. If you remember last episode, I was so deflated by the election results, I just didn't have it in me to laugh, but I've bounced back and I'm ready to continue the work of making sure our country has equitable laws. And as such, I am now ready for dad jokes. And this is the nerdiest one I have ever written. I pulled my inspiration from Erica's attitude of lighting console agnosticism. So this is a celebration of inclusion when it comes to lighting desks. If you aren't familiar with the major lighting console names, you might question some of my phrasing and wordplay, but here is a story of holiday cheer best experienced if you grab a blanket and a hot cup of cocoa and you snuggle up on the couch. I hope the lighting nerd within you will enjoy IATSE's holiday tradition. Eosa the hedgehog was invited over by her grandma, Nano, to help program the holiday lights strung up around the yard. Eosa, a high-end programmer in the lighting world, was at the apex of her career. While she was in her element with all this lighting equipment, she knew the job would be quick, just setting a timer to turn the lights on at dusk and off at 11 p.m. But she loved spending time with her grandma, and she knew this was about more than just the lights. When she arrived, she saw her grandma's brother, Avo the tiger, standing in the yard, inspecting a particularly tangled strand of lights. "Hi, great uncle Avo. I'd have been here sooner, but a few road hogs slowed me down. Judging by the expression on your face, I'm guessing you're here to lend a hand." "Oh, you know your Uncle Avo can't resist a good lighting display," he grinned. "It's a nice change from polishing a sapphire, diamond, or quartz at the shop. That's my obsession, and I know a lot about rocks and geology, but I love getting out here to use my tiger touch on something more fun. Only trouble is," he sighed, "I dropped the lighting controller somewhere in Grandma's rock garden. It's black, and it blends in perfectly with all these black obsidian and onyx rocks." "Geo, well, let's get looking," Eosa replied, smiling. They both set to work combing through the garden. A few minutes later, Eosa spotted the controller buried in a clump of leaves. "Got it," she called, lifting it triumphantly and pulling off a strand of grass. "We would have never found it out in the dark. Good thing it's Verilight out here." Together, Eosa and Uncle Avo went full bore into programming the lights, finally plugging everything into the power line and testing the settings. Just then, Grandma Nano appeared on the porch, beaming. "Avo, stop being such a hoglet and let me enjoy some time with my granddaughter. Eosa, come give me a hedge hug." As Eosa wrapped her arms around her grandma, Grandma Nano smiled. "Thank you both for helping me with these lights every year. It makes quite the impression on the neighbors. I only ever needed a simple strand of white lights, but there's no stopping you two from going whole hog and adding every color of the rainbow." Avo chuckled. "We may get a little carried away, but it's tradition, and we wouldn't have it any other way, even if I end up losing the lighting controller every year." Grandma Nano gave them both a soft squeeze. "I treasure these moments. I only have so many holiday seasons ahead of me, so I want to make the most of them. Maybe, if I'm really lucky, I'll come back as a grandma 2 or 3 and get to spend another holiday with you. Grandma, I love you now and always will," Eosa said softly. "One of the great things about you not being a nomad is that I always know where I can find you when I need a hug." Well, since we're all set up, how about we take a photo together while we wait for the sunset to see our creation all lit up? "Oh, I'd love that," Grandma Nano said. "Avo, would you mind taking a selfie of all of us?" The three of them gathered close as Avo pulled a device from his pocket to snap the photo. "Is that your phone?" Grandma asked. "Nope. It's a cam, sis," he replied with a wink. And as they stood together in the fading light, they felt the warmth of each other's company, knowing this moment would glow in their memories long after the lights had dimmed. That's it for today. Until next time, break a leg.
Thank you for listening to Artistic Finance, where we interview successful artists, leaders, and investors to help educate and inspire the creative community. To access our show notes and resources, go to artisticfinance.com. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any decision, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Artistic Finance. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.